2 to the chest, 1 to the head. That's the way they teach it, but sometimes 1 to the head is the best solution. There are 2 tragedies over the last few days. As I sat down to try to script this out, and yes, I do script out most of my videos to try to maintain some sort of a coherent train of thought, I was having a really, really hard time finding the words. I was horrified and filled with anxiety as I wrote this, because these are the sort of things that are happening across America today and across the world. So if this seems a little bit jilted, a little bit off kilter, that's why. And also I have a bubbling sense of anger inside, and I'm trying to tamp that down. Now, one of these tragedies involved a lunatic going into a home where a Hanukkah celebration was being held and trying to kill people with machete. This was an obvious hate crime, and it will likely be prosecuted as such. Now, in these videos, I really don't want to mention the names of the criminals who do this sort of a thing, because I don't want them to have even 1 second of fame from what they did. This person entered the house of a rabbi during a Hanukkah celebration and cut at least 5 people, 2 of them seriously. At least 1 of them remains in critical shape. This occurred in Monsey, New York, and it is only one of several incidents targeting people of the Jewish faith over the last few weeks. In one instance, a man who is dressed in traditional garb, an easy target, was punched in the face as he walked down the street. There was also the shooting at a kosher grocery store in New Jersey during the 2nd week of December. It leaves me horrified and almost speechless. You have to understand, it wasn't until much later in my adult life that I even started to understand the importance of the Jewish people and the Jewish faith. To put it simply, Jesus was a Jew, and the Jews were, and they still are, the apple of God's eye. We are all, each and every one of us, descendants from the house of Abraham. Mayor de Blasio has been getting ripped for his lack of leadership, and since when is that anything new? He's getting ripped for his lack of leadership when it comes to these hate crimes, as is Governor Cuomo. The Republican Jewish Coalition denounced the leadership of New York in a Twitter post. You know, it would seem that the mayor and the governor are quick to mouth the proper condolences, but slow to enact any meaningful change. Leave it to their spineless mayor to quickly take this horrific event and to try to lay the blame at the feet of President Trump. I quote, "An atmosphere of hate has been developing in this country over the last few years. A lot of it is emanating from Washington, and it's having an effect on all of us." End quote. What garbage. What a self-serving attempt to deflect blame from where it lives onto someone who has been doing more for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel than any other president in American history. Then, this past Sunday, and closer to home, there was a shooting at the West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement, Texas. A gunman walked in and opened fire with a shotgun. He managed to kill 2 people. Within 6 seconds of the killer opening fire, a member of the church security team pulled his weapon and put a hole in the head of the gunman. He did not waste 2 to the chest. He went for the instant kill shot. For those of you not familiar with how we're taught to confront an active shooter, The conventional wisdom is you aim for dead center mass. That's the area that contains the heart and the lungs. You aim for dead center mass, or DCM, because it's a pretty good sized target and you have a better chance of hitting it. You double tap. One of the problems with hitting someone dead center mass is that they often don't know that they're hit, and they don't know that they're possibly dying, at least not right away. They're so hopped up on adrenaline that they power on through and they keep trying to kill people. That's where the shot to the cranium comes in. If you completely disrupt the central nervous system, then the killer will lay down and die. Dan Bongino, one of my favorite YouTube podcasters and a retired Secret Service agent, made somewhat of a big deal about being trained to go dead center mass and not for the headshot. Jack Wilson, the head of the church security team, was the man who took the shot. He didn't go for dead center mass. He went directly to the headshot and put that ass hat down instantly. He felt like he had the shot, and he took it. If he had gone dead center mass, this maniac might have killed more people before going down. I understand where Mr. Bongino is coming from, because I've seen the videos of shootouts where the police fired dozens of bullets, literally dozens of bullets, and never once hit the bad guy or bad guys or even their car. In the heat and the adrenaline of the moment, things kind of go sideways. Oftentimes, if they did achieve a hit on dead center mass, the bullets encountered body armor and it didn't end the fight. If you recall the North Hollywood bank shootout 22 years ago, that shootout was very prolonged because the robbers were wearing neck to ankle body armor. They were hit several times, but they shook it off. A similar scenario happened in Miami in 1986, where law enforcement found themselves woefully outgunned and under-armored. This particular incident is what convinced law enforcement that they couldn't protect themselves with their shiny little 38 police specials and the grace of God. In such a charged situation as the one Mr. Wilson faced in Texas on Sunday, you experience a fight or flight scenario in which you're pumped full of adrenaline and you have to make a choice to flee or to stand your ground. In that moment, everything changes. Your field of vision narrows down so that you can better visualize the threat. Your hearing seems to go into a protective mode and everything becomes muffled. Even the gunshots coming from your weapon. Your gut ceases to try to digest anything. You don't see left and you don't see right. You see straight ahead of you. And many a sheepdog have been killed because they didn't see the other bad guys outside of the focus of their narrowed field of vision. When we practice for this, we practice turning to check our 360 rather than staying focused on what is in front of us. I emphasize this because Mr. Wilson had to make a split-second decision in the midst of all this hormonal rush, this hellish fear, and decide to take the shot that he did. I have praise for Mr. Wilson for taking that shot. Also, Mr. Bongino emphasizes that the police do not shoot to kill, no matter what the press try to make it seem like. He states that their goal is to stop the bad actor, and honestly, this is where sheepdogs outside of law enforcement differ. Our goal is to completely neutralize the bad guy, not to injure him. If you know anything about snakes, they can bite when badly injured. You want the bad guy dead, unable to hurt anyone else. I'm sorry if that sounds callous, but put yourself and your family in the West Freeway Church and then tell me you only want the guy sort of hurt so that maybe he would decide to play fair and stop shooting people. No, you want him dead. You want him completely unable to pull the trigger again, period. There's been a lot of talk after this about Texas changing its laws in 2017 to allow carry in our houses of worship. That's true, they did pass that law, but before that you could carry concealed as long as the leadership of the church allowed it. Some people ask why we don't just let the police handle these instances. Well, I think you can understand from the West Freeway Church shooting that the gunman would have had a much higher head count if there had not been a good guy with a gun present and ready to protect his church family. A sheepdog willing to lay down his life to protect the sheep. I've been on the security team in 3 different churches. At one church I attended, which I'll not name, we did hire off-duty police officers. One would show up in uniform and would stay in the lobby. Now, understand, I'm not knocking this. His or her presence in the lobby would serve as the first deterrent against someone looking to do bad things. If they were in the sanctuary, they might be able to help once it hit the fan, but it was best to keep them out where they would be instantly noticed by anyone coming in with bad intent. As far as the sanctuary detail went, there were always at least 5 of us that were sitting in different parts of the church, as well as scattered throughout the church, especially protecting the nursery and the kids' church. I would station myself in the balcony, a crow's nest sort of approach. I was also in the pastor detail, and I walked him from his office down to his seat as praise and worship was beginning. There's usually 2 or 3 of us on this detail, and we tried to make this as subtle as possible because we really didn't want people to suddenly change from a worshipful attitude to one of remembering that bad people were out there and that were people in the church armed with guns that were standing by. If something bad did happen, and if there was no security within the sanctuary and only in the lobby, it would take critical time for that police officer to be in position to alter the calculus of the situation. However, having a trained security team working in tandem with this officer placed in strategic positions allows a much more rapid response. This is what happened in the West Freeway Church of Christ. Lastly, leave it to Beto O'Rourke to take this tragedy and to try to push his anti-gun agenda. Do you remember his recent vow? Yes, we will take your AR-15s. That Beto? He almost immediately tweeted, and I quote, "Clearly, what we are doing in Texas, what we are doing in this country when it comes to guns is not working," end quote. So if he means that the existing laws on the books are not being enforced properly, then that's true. If he means that this church should have been a gun-free zone where this asshat could have enjoyed a safe shooting spree, then he's wrong. It is the one thing that these clowns in politics never seem to understand, or that they refuse to understand, or they just don't want to understand. It's not the millions of Americans who enjoy their rights to legally carry concealed that are the danger. It's people like Beto that want them to bow down in front of their executioner while waiting to be beheaded. If you value your Second Amendment rights, you better be sitting up and paying attention right now. If you're sick and tired of the NRA, like I presently am, then there are plenty of other gun lobby groups that could use a few bucks tossed their way. Try the Gun Owners of America and the Second Amendment Foundation. Both are doing a magnificent job. I know this was lengthy, and if you got all the way through it, then I'm very grateful. I do have a strong feeling about gun rights, and it will come out from time to time, although YouTube will probably take some action against me. As I'm not big enough to be demonetized, I guess I need to worry about being deplatformed. In the meantime, please hit the like button if you liked it, and sub if you're not. Ring that bell so that you will know when new content comes out. Most of all, please consider sharing this video. Try to have a great conservative day.